They had almost nothing except love, and that love led them to give everything. O. Henry's The Gift of the Magi is a short story that captures the essence of love through irony, sacrifice, and quiet tenderness. It follows a young married couple, Della and Jim, on Christmas Eve as they struggle to afford meaningful gifts for each other. Della counts her savings and realizes she doesn't have enough money to buy a present worthy of Jim. Her most valuable possession is her long, beautiful hair. In a moment of resolve, she sells it to buy a platinum chain for Jim's treasured gold watch. That evening, Jim returns home and is stunned to see Della's short hair. He then presents his gift, an elegant set of combs he had long wished to give her. To buy them, Jim sold his gold watch. Their gifts are now useless. Yet the story does not treat this as tragedy, the irony of love. The power of the story lies in its paradox. Each character gives up what they cherish most for the happiness of the other. Their actions are impractical and illogical, yet profoundly loving. What makes a gift meaningful? O. Henry suggests that the true value of a gift is not its price or usefulness, but the depth of understanding behind it. Della honors Jim's time and legacy. Jim honors Della's beauty and identity. Their gifts reveal how deeply they know one another. The wisdom of the Magi. In the final lines, O. Henry compares the couple to the Magi, the wise men who brought gifts to the newborn Christ. Though poor and seemingly foolish, Della and Jim are the wisest of all because they understand that love is measured by sacrifice. The gift of the Magi endures because it reminds us that the greatest gifts are not things, but the willingness to give ourselves. Next, we'll explore why this simple story continues to define the meaning of love and generosity across generations.
You know how some stories they stick with you forever? Not because of how they start, but because of that perfect, jaw-dropping ending that makes you rethink everything. Well, today, we're talking about the undisputed master of that craft, O. Henry, a man whose own life had more twists than any story he ever wrote. So let's start with what might be one of the most famous Christmas stories ever told, apart from, the original one. It's called The Gift of the Magi, and it really gets to the emotional core of everything O. Henry was about. The story kicks off with this number, $1.87. That's it. On Christmas Eve, this is every single penny that a young woman named Della has managed to save up to buy a gift for her husband, Jim. It's such a tiny amount, but it paints this huge picture of their life, of their struggle in a shabby little New York apartment. But even though they don't have much money, Jim and Della each have one thing they treasure more than anything. For Della, it's her hair. It's absolutely magnificent, cascading down her back. And for Jim, it's a gold watch that's been passed down in his family. These aren't just things, they're kind of symbols of who they are, of their own private worth in a world that hasn't given them a whole lot. And this is where the story pivots on one single heart-wrenching decision. Della, so desperate to buy Jim a worthy gift, goes out and sells her beautiful hair. With the cash, she buys a perfect platinum chain for his gold watch. Now, at the very same time, in this perfect mirror image of love, Jim sells his treasured watch to buy a set of exquisite jeweled combs that he knows Della has wanted for her hair for the longest time. And here it is, the beautiful, poignant, absolutely perfect twist at the end. The chain is for a watch that's gone. The combs are for hair that's been cut off. On the surface, their gifts are completely useless, but the story shows us they're the wisest givers of all, the real Magi. Because their sacrifices reveal something so much more valuable, their selfless, unconditional love for each other. So who was the incredible mind behind this perfectly constructed story of love and irony? Well, the answer is just as full of twists as the tale itself. Turns out, the author the world knew as O. Henry was basically leading a double life.
Yeah, his real name was William Sidney Porter, and while his stories were known for being charming and witty and just full of heart, Porter's actual life was a roller coaster of success, failure, and, believe it or not, even crime.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's wild. He starts out as a licensed pharmacist, then a respectable bank teller in Texas. But then, bam, he's accused of embezzlement, becomes a fugitive hiding out in Honduras, and eventually lands in federal prison. It's only after hitting absolute rock bottom that he resurfaces in New York City and becomes O. Henry, one of the most popular writers in America.
And here's a crazy little piece of trivia from his time on the run. While he was hiding in Honduras, he wrote a book of stories, and in it, he actually coined the term banana republic, to describe a politically unstable country that depends on a single export. That phrase we still use all the time, It came from a future literary star who was dodging the law.
But his time in prison, that was the real turning point. He was convicted of embezzlement, a charge he always said he was innocent of, by the way, and was sent to federal prison for 3 years. It was behind bars that he really started to become a writer, publishing short stories under different names to make money to support his young daughter. So we've got the man himself, pharmacist, fugitive, convict, and literary genius. When you know his life story, it's almost no surprise he became the absolute master of the twist ending. So let's break down the method, the anatomy of what made him a legend. This right here, this is his signature move, the O. Henry ending. It's not just a surprise, it's a kind of revelation that snaps the whole story into a new focus, forcing you to see everything that came before in a completely different light. It became his trademark, the thing readers couldn't wait for in every new story. You know, his biographer actually broke it down into a 4-step formula. It's pretty simple, really. You start with the characters and the setting, then you develop the plot, but you scatter little hints and bits of misdirection along the way. All of that builds up to the huge climactic twist, and then it's capped off with a quick, witty conclusion that just lets that irony sink in. To pull it off, he had this perfect recipe of ingredients. His stories are just full of sparkling wit and dialogue that sounds so real. He used these vivid descriptions that pulled you right in. He expertly used irony and coincidence to drive the plot, and maybe most important of all, he always had this deep empathy for his characters. So, who were these characters that he had so much empathy for? Well, O. Henry made a very conscious choice to turn his camera away from the rich and famous and instead point it right at the lives of ordinary, everyday people, especially in his new home, New York City.
He famously put it this way in the intro to his collection, The 4 Million. At the time, the 400 was this term for New York's elite high society. And O. Henry was basically saying, forget them. He believed the real stories, the real soul of the city, was with the 4 million regular folks, the shopgirls, the cops, the artists, the clerks.
And boy, did he tell their stories. After he moved to New York in 1902, he just exploded creatively. He wrote an astounding 381 short stories. He was often cranking out one story a week for a magazine, just to keep up with his bills and his huge popularity. Just incredible.
And his range was amazing. The Gift of the Magi is so tender, right? But then you've got The Ransom of Red Chief, which is this hilarious story about 2 kidnappers who get driven totally insane by the little kid they've taken. Or The Cop and the Anthem, a super ironic story about a homeless man trying to get arrested so he can have a warm place to sleep for the winter. He could go from heartfelt drama to laugh-out-loud comedy in a snap. Now, despite a life that was pretty much a constant struggle with money and alcoholism, which sadly led to his death when he was only 47, William Sidney Porter left behind this enormous, lasting legacy. Today, his name is basically synonymous with the art of the short story. The O. Henry Award, which was created in his honor, is one of the most prestigious literary prizes a writer of short fiction can win. It just goes to show how his influence continues to shape American literature.
And maybe the most touching part of his legacy is this. To this day, at his grave in North Carolina, visitors keep up this tradition. They leave $1.87 in change, Della's exact savings. It's this quiet, beautiful tribute to the power of his most famous story. The cemetery staff even collects the money and donates it to local libraries. How great is that?
Which really brings us to the final question. Some critics back in his day kind of dismissed him as just an entertainer, someone who was only focused on clever plot tricks. But when you look back at the deep empathy, the understanding of sacrifice, the celebration of love in his work, you have to wonder, was he just a trickster with a pen, or was he something more? Maybe a profound philosopher of the ordinary human heart?